They say that the happiest place on earth is Disneyland. But for hackers, it's probably behind a computer screen. Now, when you think of a hacker, you probably imagine some shadowy figure hunched over a keyboard in a dimly lit room, wearing a hoodie and surrounded by empty energy drink cans. Maybe they're even wearing sunglasses indoors for that extra touch of mystery. But the truth is often far from these Hollywood stereotypes. Hackers are as diverse as the world we live in. They come in all shapes and sizes, from all walks of life. Some are self-taught prodigies who started coding before they could tie their shoelaces. Others are brilliant minds who turned to the dark side after a promising career in Silicon Valley. And then there are those who simply stumbled into the world of hacking, drawn in by the allure of the forbidden. But despite their differences, they all share a common trait: a love for the thrill of the chase, the exhilaration of breaking through a firewall, of outsmarting a security system, of diving into a sea of code and emerging victorious. It's a game of cat and mouse, and they are the elusive mice, always one step ahead of the lumbering cat. This isn't a tale of good versus evil or of heroes and villains. It's a story of ordinary people who chose an unordinary path, a path that led them to amazing discoveries, unimaginable wealth, and in some cases, a life on the run from the law. But before we dive into their stories, let's set the stage. Picture a world where information is power, where a single line of code can topple empires or create new ones. A world where the only limit is your imagination and your ability to evade the authorities, of course. But every fairy tale has an ending, and for these hackers, it wasn't happily ever after. Kevin Mitnick was a hacker who didn't need Wi-Fi, he had why not? Enter the world of Kevin Mitnick, a man who treated the digital world as his personal playground. A master of deception, Kevin wasn't your average hacker. He was a phreaker, a term coined for those who manipulate telecommunication systems. Kevin was so good at this, he could have probably convinced a telephone pole to make him a cup of coffee. His exploits were legendary. At the tender age of 12, Kevin began his journey into the world of hacking. He'd often use his skills to manipulate the Los Angeles bus punch card system just to get free rides. Cheeky, isn't it? His pranks escalated from harmless fare dodging to more daring ventures. Kevin even managed to hack into the North American Defense Command, a feat that would make even James Bond raise an eyebrow. He had a knack for evading law enforcement, always seeming to be one step ahead. Like a digital Houdini. He was so elusive, he earned the title of the fugitive phreaker. But just like in the movies, the chase only intensified. The government was committed to catching this elusive phreaker, and Kevin, well, he seemed to enjoy the thrill of the chase. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. And so it did for our fugitive phreaker. After being on the run for 2.5 years, Kevin was finally apprehended in 1995. His capture marked the end of one of the most thrilling games of digital cat and mouse the world had ever seen. Kevin's story is a cautionary tale, a testament to the fact that no matter how smart or elusive you are, the law always catches up. After serving his time, Kevin made a complete turnaround. Today, he uses his skills to help secure networks, proving that even hackers can have a change of heart. And just like that, Kevin went from why not to why did I do that? Adrian Lamo was the only hacker who could break into a computer network and a cardboard box at the same time. An enigma in the world of hacking, Lamo's exploits were as unconventional as his dwelling places. Lamo, known as the homeless hacker, lived a nomadic lifestyle, drifting from city to city, often found sleeping in abandoned buildings or even under the stars. But don't let his disheveled appearance fool you. His brain was a weapon, sharp as a tack and just as dangerous. Despite his wandering lifestyle, Lamo's mind was never far from the digital world. He had a knack for finding vulnerabilities in computer networks. He could sneak into the most secure systems without leaving a trace, like a ghost in the machine. His most infamous exploit was the intrusion into the New York Times internal network. Lamo added his name to the list of expert sources, giving him access to high-profile contacts. But Lamo was not content with just playing tricks. He had a moral compass, albeit a bit skewed. He would often inform the companies about their security gaps, playing a twisted version of a Good Samaritan. But like all tales of mischief, Lamo's story also came with a twist. His exploits eventually caught the attention of the authorities. The faceless specter now had a face, and it was plastered on wanted posters. His capture was as anticlimactic as the end of a wild goose chase. He was arrested in 2003 in a cafe, his fingers still warm from the keyboard. In the end, Adrian found that the only address that mattered was his IP address. His tale is a reminder that in the world of hacking, no matter how stealthy you are, the digital footprint you leave behind can lead straight to your doorstep, or in Adrian's case, your cardboard box. Gary McKinnon was a man on a mission, and that mission was to find aliens on US government computers. Now, Gary wasn't your typical UFO enthusiast, no. He was a hacker, a master of computer manipulation, and his target, the United States military and NASA networks. Fueled by a burning curiosity about extraterrestrial life, Gary embarked on his quest, poking and prodding into the digital depths of some of the most secure systems on the planet. His tool of choice? A humble dial-up internet connection and a knack for spotting weak points in digital defenses. From his small apartment in London, he surfed the digital cosmos, searching for evidence of alien life hidden in classified documents. Over 13 months, Gary was a digital ghost, slipping undetected into 97 US military and NASA computers. It was like he was playing a game of interstellar hide-and-seek, except the stakes were incredibly high, and his playground was a web of top-secret files and folders. However, Gary's starbound journey wasn't without turbulence. In 2002, his digital footprint was finally spotted. The US government was not amused. They claimed that Gary had caused around $800,000 in damages. That's a pretty hefty price tag for a quest to find EE. After a lengthy legal battle, Gary was arrested. The UK initially fought his extradition to the US, but eventually the hacker-turned-UFO hunter found himself facing charges in a US court. You might wonder what Gary found on his quest. Well, he claimed to have uncovered evidence of free energy suppression and a cover-up of UFO activity. But unfortunately for Gary, the US government wasn't too keen on his findings. Turns out the only alien Gary found was himself in a US court. His journey, as fascinating as it was, serves as a stark reminder of the consequences that come with such high-stake digital games. Albert Gonzalez was a hacker who believed in the motto, "Shop till you drop." The problem? He wasn't using his own credit card. Meet Albert, a computer whiz with a knack for numbers. And by numbers, I mean credit card numbers. Albert's story is a classic tale of a smart guy who decided to use his intellect for the wrong reasons. Instead of becoming a Silicon Valley superstar, he became the king of credit card fraud. Albert's journey to infamy began in the early 2000s. He and his crew, known as the Shadow Crew, had a simple yet ingenious plan. They'd infiltrate the systems of major retailers, siphon off credit card information, and then sell it on the black market. Sounds like a plot from a Hollywood movie, right? Well, reality can sometimes be stranger than fiction. At the peak of his operation, Albert was sitting on a virtual gold mine. He had access to over 170 million credit card numbers. That's more than half the population of the United States. And boy, did he enjoy his ill-gotten gains. Luxury cars, extravagant parties, and even a bathtub filled with cash. Albert was living the high life, all on someone else's dime. But as they say, pride comes before a fall. Albert's downfall began when he got a little too confident. He started leaving digital footprints, breadcrumbs for law enforcement to follow. And follow they did. The Secret Service, with the help of international agencies, began to close in. Finally, in 2008, Albert's shopping spree came to an abrupt halt. He was arrested and charged with numerous counts of identity theft and credit card fraud. His defense? He claimed to have internet addiction and Asperger's syndrome. The judge, however, was not swayed. Albert was sentenced to 20 years in prison, the longest sentence ever handed down for hacking in the United States. Albert's shopping spree ended when he tried to check out with a 10-year prison sentence. But as we all know, there are no free rides in life, especially not when you're riding on someone else's credit card. Jenson James Ancheta was a hacker who believed in the power of numbers, specifically the number of computers he could control. Now, Jenson wasn't your average keyboard warrior. He was the botnet bandit, a cyber cowboy riding the wild frontiers of the internet. His weapon of choice? Not a lasso or a six-shooter, but a botnet. a network of computers infected with malware, all under his command. With a few strokes on his keyboard, he could marshal an army of computers to do his bidding. Imagine having a crowd of obedient minions ready to follow your every command. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, for Jensen, this was a reality. He would orchestrate these digital minions to attack business websites, slowing them down or even crashing them altogether. And then, like a true bandit, he would saunter into the chaos and offer his services to fix the problem. For a fee, of course. But his most audacious scheme was when he rented out his botnet army to others. It was like a villainous Airbnb, but for hackers. Need a few thousand computers to send spam emails? Jensen was your man. Want to crash a rival's website? Just dial up the botnet bandit. Yet, in the vast expanse of the cyber frontier, the law was never far behind. The authorities were onto him, tracking his digital footprints across the web. They traced the chaos back to its source, our botnet bandit. The day came when Jensen found himself not at his keyboard, but in a courtroom. The gavel fell, and with it fell the botnet bandit's reign. He was sentenced to nearly 6 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution to those he had harmed. Jensen learned the hard way that the only thing he really controlled was his own fate. And as for his botnet, well, let's just say it's under new management. The kind of management that wears badges and upholds the law. And that, my friends, is the tale of the botnet bandit. So what can we learn from these hackers, aside from how not to spend our free time? Well, for starters, we've seen that the digital world is akin to the Wild West, a place where rules are made to be broken and where the quick-witted can rise to infamy. But it's not all fun and games in the binary backwoods. Our fugitive freaker taught us that even the most elusive of outlaws can't outrun the long arm of the law forever. You can dial all the numbers in the world, but eventually one of them will connect you to a pair of shiny handcuffs. Then there's the homeless hacker, who showed us that even in the digital realm, you can't escape life's basic necessities. Sure, you can hack the planet, but at the end of the day, you still need a roof over your head and a hot meal. And let's be honest, a prison cell is not the kind of home we're aiming for. Our UFO hunter highlighted the importance of knowing when to disconnect. When your quest for extraterrestrial life lands you in a terrestrial jail, it might be time to step away from the keyboard and maybe pick up a hobby. Bird watching, perhaps. The credit card king reminded us that every kingdom has its downfall. Piling up riches through nefarious means is like building a castle on quicksand. Eventually, it all sinks. And finally, the botnet bandit showed us that control is an illusion. You might command an army of infected devices, but in the end, you're just another pawn in the grand game of chess played by law enforcement. In essence, these tales from the cyber underworld underscore the importance of ethical behavior in the digital age. They show us that while the internet can be a playground, it's also a battleground where responsibility, integrity, and respect for the law still hold sway. Remember, the only good hacking is ethical hacking, and the only good con is a Comic-Con.